Ivy Nation Sports Talk up and rolling. It's Wednesday. That's Vince DeDario. I'm Sean Stiers. Hope you're having a good one. I lost power this afternoon.
Today?
Yeah, today.
Oh, wow.
I think it was because I saw an abnormal amount of, like the trucks out working on power. And I think that while they were working on getting power back someplace else, ours went out for a while today.
How long were you without it?
Few hours.
Oh, wow.
I tell you what, it was long enough that I started smelling myself. I started realizing I have not taken a shower yet today. So, yeah. Like, it's bad when you start smelling your own funk, Like,
well, and that's the biggest issue. Like, there were some benefits to not having power, at least in my house, right? Like, all the screens went away, and like my children actually began to converse with each other. And they were actually like getting along and playing together. So like that was a bonus. That was a thumbs up. The thumbs down part was the lack of showering and lack of toilet option, which was the biggest issue with a family of 7. Boys didn't have a problem because there's bushes out in the back. Girls were having a
well, that's right, because like we've got the well water,
right.
So that means that
right.
Like most houses, you could still take a shower without your power.
Yep.
But when you're in the city, but when you're out here, in the rural area and you rely on, you need that pump. The water's got a pump. So no pump.
So it was,
one flush is all we get.
Don't touch the faucets. Don't touch the toilets.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that was the only negative part, to be honest with you, was that part of it. And that was a negative. Don't get me wrong. That was a negative. But
for sure.
I kind of liked watching my kids actually talk to each other. It was good. But I'll take power. Power is good. I don't have to do the manual, garage door and like, all the other stuff that you got to do when you don't have power. So yeah. And I couldn't hang out with you on Monday.
Yeah, that's what it was. You were really upset about that.
Really upset about it.
I just sent you a screenshot, and I don't know how to put those up in the chat. Okay. Do you know a way to get that up?
Let me see if I can make it happen for you.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Hold on.
It is Mailbag Day while we yak here at the start of the show. So go ahead, throw your questions into the mailbag in the chat. And as DJ, I saw him chiming in. He said, DJ's not here to keep me on time, and he's also not here to fill up the mailbag with his usual 50 questions. So that opens up plenty of opportunities for other people to get their questions in the mailbag show tonight. Brent Smith, that's our old friend.
Wow.
Brent Smith, he is here. And it's funny that Brent Smith is here because this is what I wanted to show.
See if I can make it bigger. Hold on.
Yeah, blow up that part down there, the red part. Brent Smith, if Brock Purdy doesn't finish this season as a Super Bowl winning quarterback and top 2 in MVP, I'll drop a $100 super chat.
Oh, let's take that bet.
Brent waited. He tried to wait us out, because I don't think we've seen him much this offseason. So then Brent pops in. There you go, Brent. Keep it to your word.
Oh, Brent, we need to hold on to that screenshot.
That's right.
We're going to need to bring that back come like January when the 49ers aren't even in the playoffs. So, yikes. Hey, I love the enthusiasm, though. I love the enthusiasm.
I know. I only wish Jesse could be here to see it as well, because Jesse and Brent love going back and forth. But
that's fantastic. Yeah.
He says he's not avoiding us. Okay, well.
I love that you're here, Brent. Cheers to you, sir.
I do too. Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this out there. I have worn this top numerous times. It's one of my, I do enjoy wearing this one to school, but
it's a sharp looking top. I like it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Got it for Christmas from my brother-in-law. But anyway, today is Autism Awareness Day, which is why I'm wearing blue. So just throwing that out there to anybody who
All right.
has
Well,
that in their lives. And
at least I've got my blue on. I didn't
see,
realize today was
well,
autism awareness, but
see,
all right.
you're there. So I deal with a few different kids on the spectrum at school on a regular basis. So I figured today I will support and I will wear my blue. So I wanted to throw that out there to everybody.
All right. Again, it is mailbag day, so get your questions. There is some news this afternoon regarding Notre Dame women's basketball, not of the good kind.
No.
With Kylie Watson entering the transfer portal. That is 4 players to the portal this week. And it's not been a good start to the offseason.
I mean,
Notre Dame.
I know you love doing play-by-play, but as of right now, they don't even have a starting 5,
Nope.
which could prove to be difficult
Unless they switch to 3-on-3,
right?
Like,
right. I was. DJ says he's not surprised about Kylie Watson. I'm a little surprised just because she put in all the time, and this is me as a fan, right? She put in all this time. She's on the bench, all season with the notion that, she's coming back from the injury and would be back full go for next year. And then she hits the transfer portal. Like it did surprise me. I will say that. Just like if you were going to hit the portal, I'm surprised she stuck around and just rode the bench and was a supporter, obviously, of her teammates and everything else. But, sat the bench all season.
Are we talking about the same person, Chris? Because he says she hasn't played since she joined the team. This was her 3rd season with the team. She started for 2 years.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think she started 64 games in her first 2 years. So she played a lot. Now, was she, from a starting standpoint, she was out there quite a bit. She averaged around 6 points and 5 rebounds in 2 years. From a body standpoint, yeah, you could use that right now. And with being the 4th player to enter the portal, yeah, that looks bad right now because it's 4 players in the span of a couple of days. But 6 points, 5 rebounds for a player going into her 5th year. Were you reasonably going to expect anything more than that? She gave them solid defensive presence in the paint. I always thought she was a pretty good defensive player, in the post. But what were you going to get otherwise? Not trying to be mean, but how significant a loss really is it when she's coming off an injury as well?
Right. So it still surprised me. Okay. Yeah. I will say that. Not like I said, not everybody is going to sit through an entire season knowing you're not going to play all season and then hit the portal. Like that seemed odd to me, but whatever, that's fine. Miles, I think we all knew she wasn't coming back to Notre Dame. Surprised she hit the portal. I know you guys talked about it yesterday. That's my take on it. So I was surprised at that part of it, right? I figured she's the projected. I just looked up another mock draft. She was projected to go number 2. You know what I mean? So that was surprising to me. Emma Risch, that's not surprising.
No, and again, if you're going to just go number of players in the portal, Emma Risch has barely played in correct. 2 years because of injury. So, high hopes, high expectations coming out of high school because she was a 5-star. She's been hurt the last 2 years. And honestly, of these, Risch to me is the least surprising of the bunch.
Agreed. No, way better than I do, but it just never felt like she fit she was injured. That was definitely part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But even when she wasn't injured, it just didn't feel like there was a fit there. And, for whatever reason, I don't know the reason, but I wasn't overly surprised by that. So what was she going to bring to the team next year? What was Kylie Watson going to bring to the team next year? Not high numbers, obviously. And so, yeah, that was surprising that Kylie left, but not broken up about it. Look, they're going to hit the portal. They're going to
see, and that was the thing. They were always going to have to hit the portal anyway. But again, you were already expecting Olivia Miles was going to be gone. You just didn't think she was going to be transferred. So right now, just from this season, it's really only a net loss of 1, and that's Kate Koval. Now
that was the big one for me. Yeah.
Right. So that, again, they were going to have to go to the portal for probably 4 to 5 anyway. And now you're just going to have to go for, 6 maybe even 7. Look, the whole Indiana men's basketball roster turned over when they changed head coaches. Like this is part of the world that we live in right now. Like, yeah,
Right.
and like it is part of the world that we live in. And Niele Ivey and her program have, for the most part, been fairly immune to it. Like when she took over 5 years ago, I went back and looked, and I forgot how many actually left that team. But again, like if you're we're in the panic mode because these players are leaving. These are the players from Niele Ivey's first team. Amira Abdur-Rahim. Do you remember that name? Probably
Nope.
not. Alasia Hayes transferred to Mississippi State to be with her sisters. Didn't really work out that well. Danielle Cosgrove, and then Allie Campbell. And Allie Campbell was a freshman that year. And like fans who follow it closely were freaking out because Allie Campbell left because she was the Pennsylvania State Player of the Year, came in with all these, high regard. And again, like highly recruited and all this different stuff. Allie Campbell ended up averaging 5 points a game in her career at Penn State. A little over 5 points per game, but people were like losing their minds. But again, so like that was the turnover from that first team. And then the next year, Sam Brunell ended up leaving. She transferred back to her home state, Virginia. Again, like she played for a couple of years for Virginia. It's not like she ever lived up to the billing of the number 1 player in the nation by any means. Abby Prohaska transferred from that next team, and Anea Peoples transferred from that next team. So like, that's 7 players from that first team. But again, like you kind of expect that when you've got a first-year head coach and some turnover. Really, since then, though, it's funny because Nat Marshall was also on that first team. She didn't play because she was injured in high school coming into college. And then, of course, she ended up transferring this past offseason to go down to Miami. So, like, that's 9 total players from that first team who ended up transferring. But again, like when you look at that list of 9, it's not like any of them went on to have any, like big significant careers. They all played at other places, but none of them you ever went, man, we really kicking yourself because that player ended up leaving. So I'll be curious to see what happens with these players. One thing I didn't think about yesterday, I don't know how much of a factor this is, but I will just throw this out there that it could have at least been a factor for Kate Koval. She obviously went to Long Island Lutheran in New York, and she does have a boyfriend who plays for a Division I basketball team on the East Coast. So I don't know if maybe that, might have been a factor in her whole decision, since she also is obviously living in a different country other than her own. She's been here in the States for 4 years, and she has brothers here. And so I don't know. I'm throwing that out there that I'll be curious to see where she ends up, if maybe she ends up, back somewhere closer.
So are you trying to tell me that Kate didn't sit down with you and discuss this with you and why she's leaving? Come on, man.
I know.
Expect more from you.
Good. I know.
Come on, man. But look, the bottom line is whether we're surprised, we're not surprised, whatever. The bottom line is they've got 4 scholarship players remaining on the roster for 25-26. Like that's the issue. And so obviously they're going to have to be active in the transfer portal. They're going to have to bring some people in, and so what is that going to look like? We're all going to sit and wait and see. I mean, I believe the portal is the same for the women as it is for the men. It's going to be open until like the 22nd of April, something like that. And so there's time. There's a few weeks. Let's see what happens.
I mean, and again, TCU, 9 transfer portal players in the last 2 years.
And that's exactly right.
On that team. Now,
yeah,
the difference could be like TCU was willing to sink a lot of money, like NIL money, into that roster. I don't think that Notre Dame is going to be sinking the same amount, to be able to get like 2 big-time players like Van Lith and Prince. Joseph wants to know why you're not surprised about Rish Watson and Koval.
I am not surprised about Rish. I was surprised about Watson and Koval. So, and I thought I made that clear, but that's okay if I didn't. I can repeat myself because Rish, like I said, it never felt like, from an outsider looking in, it never felt like she was comfortable in the rotation, and it just never felt like she was comfortable. That's the vibe that I got. Watson, I am surprised about because she sat through this entire season knowing she wasn't going to play and then jumped into the portal. Like that seemed odd. That seems odd to me, right? And then Kate Koval, I mean, she started a bunch of games this year. She's a freshman. I'm surprised that she jumped into the portal as a freshman. Like that surprises me. She was going to play a bunch next year, no doubt about it. She's a highly recruited, recruit coming in. I thought she did an admirable job this year. Okay. Yes, there's some stuff that could be better and all of that. I thought she did an admirable job as a freshman with what they put on her shoulders early on, because of some injuries and some things like that.
Yeah.
I thought she did an admirable job. I would like to see her get better from now until next year, right? I mean, an off season to get better. Absolutely. But I thought that would be something that they would do. I'm surprised she jumped in the portal. So 2 out of the 3 I'm surprised about. The other one, not so much.
Andy Saylor said Neil's been good with the portal. Anna DeWolf, Leah Chu King, Liza Carlin were starters. Yeah, I mean, they, when they've been able to supplement what they have with some of these transfers, they have been really good. The thing this offseason now is they've got to basically triple down on the transfers,
right?
because of the state of the roster right now, because it doesn't sound like you're probably going to be able to count on Leah Macy probably playing at the start of the season. I still haven't been able to get, real confirmation on exactly the extent of her injury, because it is an injury and all that kind of stuff. And, people don't want to talk about them and everything, but yeah, I was a little surprised, decaf, at the conditioning that Koval had coming in. It did surprise me a little bit, but look, when they were playing some of the mid-majors, non-conference at the start of the season, and like Purdue and some of those, she was doing really well, and she had a nice game against Texas as well. I think she blocked 5 shots in the Texas game. And that was significant. But obviously, once Westbeld and Carlin were both back, her minutes decreased, and they never found a consistent role for her over the course of the season. And it was just kind of a flat line after that, unfortunately. It's like your Apple Watch, like when you see the spikes where you've got your exercise and then it's like flat line the rest of the time. So, yeah. Will, he says, sorry if this has been discussed, but could Miles make more money in college than the WNBA? Yes, this is a conversation that we did, obviously, had when we were talking about that the other day. I think that she can get somewhere in the $500,000 a year, she's going into the portal with a no contact, on her name. So she obviously knows where or at the very least, her agent is shopping her.
Yeah.
Because again, like Jesse and I were talking about, the fact that the report of Miles going to the portal was broken by Shams Charania, the ESPN's NBA reporter, and no one related to the college world.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that says the agent went to Shams, and that's how this whole thing, that's how the story came out. And I think that the agent is very actively involved. I know that Olivia Miles' agent has been very, here's an example. Like, when NIL started, everyone on both basketball teams and football got some kind of NIL money from Under Armour, as an example. Olivia Miles was on the women's basketball team. I can't speak for the other teams, but on the women's basketball team, she was the lone exception because her agent advised her not to take the Under Armour money because Nike would be out there in her future. So she never took any Under Armour money, from what at least at the time. I don't think she ever took any Under Armour money, though. So,
and just for, I don't know if you guys discussed this, specifically, but I looked up what the number 2 pick in the draft would make, and it's set in stone.
And it's not very much.
$78,000.
Exactly.
And for a professional athlete, that's not very much, right?
And that's why she's making this decision, because between the NIL money she's going to get this year,
right,
and then the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement expires after this season, and what they are expecting is, those salary slots all to go up at least into the low,
100,000,
6 figure. Yeah, I was trying to figure like 100,000s. Yeah, 6 figures up from, like the mid 70s or whatever. So they're expecting that initial contract base to, to at least jump a little bit next year, plus the NIL money that she'll make this year, it's a lot more. The only risk obviously is you risk another injury by playing in college for another year. But if you're able to go out and get, say, $500,000 in NIL from some school to get you to come in, then, I think that from a money earning standpoint, that offsets that risk.
Yeah, I would hope that Notre Dame could have matched whatever money she wanted to get if she really wanted to stick around.
Well, they weren't going to because I know you weren't here the other day because, from what I'm hearing, there's men's basketball is like this cycle, like this upcoming going into next year. Men's basketball from the NIL standpoint is the priority because they've got to get men's basketball
right
closer to respectable. So they're going to get a lot more NIL funds than women's basketball is going to get. So that so there's, and they're again, like if you're looking at what Hannah Hidalgo's making in her NIL, which is a pretty good chunk, there wasn't room to pay two stars like that.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I get that. I can appreciate that.
Right.
So, okay.
You want to talk some football? I see a lot of football questions.
There's a lot of questions actually in there, so you can pick and choose. We could have a super chat. We want to do the super chat.
Yeah, let's do that. Super chat. Tyler Evans. Thank you, sir. What round do you think Riley Leonard gets drafted, and what team? I have a gut feeling third round Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm so bad when it comes to draft analysis. I stopped guessing when Ian Book went in the fourth round. Like that, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Like that one shocked me more than any draft of a Notre Dame player has ever shocked me. If I had to guess, I would probably say day 3. And then at that point, once you're at day 3, who knows what team it's going to be? I mean, you can say that it's a team that has a quarterback that already kind of runs around a little bit. The Bills, the Ravens, that kind of a thing. Definite possibility. But I without analyzing how many picks those particular teams have, what that looks like, who's going to be on the board, I'd say day 3, and I'll say I have no idea which team.
I'll go day 3. I'll say 6th round Ravens is where I'm going. Ravens or Colts? Ravens or Colts? Colts, I kind of heard after they were up here watching him at Pro Day, whether or not that amounts to anything. I did see that there's some interest, in but they might be wanting to go a different direction after the Anthony Richardson experiment. Maybe they don't want a running quarterback who's a little bit of a project as a passer coming in. Again, so I'll stick with Ravens. I like Ravens.
One thing that I know will never happen if Riley Leonard is on the Colts. Okay, he will never tap out and want to.
That is true.
That will never.
Very true.
Yeah, unless they're taking him out on a stretcher, that will never happen with Riley Leonard. So, yeah.
Dr. Bull Dobbs, update on the quarterback competition.
Ask me on Monday, next Monday, and I'll have an update.
After we allegedly get to see him.
Yeah,
do some live stuff this Saturday.
I haven't seen them at all yet. I haven't even gone to the 4-period practices because I'm at work, and so I have not seen them at all this spring. And so my first availability of seeing them is going to be on Saturday, and so. Actually, Brian and I are going to do a show on Saturday. So,
are you? Okay.
Yes. So tune in on Saturday, and I will give you all of my updates on the quarterback competition that we witness on that day. So,
and then you'll bring it back next Monday as well.
Bring it back Monday as well because it's a different show. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I kind of do know what to expect. I feel like, but there's been no updates because we can't watch practice. Like the last time we were allowed to watch practice was a week ago today. And I'm sure a lot's changed since then.
And even that, Vince,
right?
Instead of 5 periods, it's 4 periods,
right?
And only a couple of them they're actually doing anything. So, I mean, you hear good things about all 3 of them. The 2 that you hear the most like the best stuff about probably the guys that you would think it would be, Angeli and Carr.
Yeah.
Right. We'll actually have some comments from KK Smith on the quarterbacks in rapid fire. Got to talk to KK Smith, wide receiver, today. Some comments about himself, some comments about the quarterbacks that you'll hear in rapid fire, and a little Mike Denbrock audio on Steve Angeli as well. Speaking of which, so you got that going for you. Joe's got a quarterback question. He says, let's stir the pot. What's your take on Greg McElroy saying Angeli could have Joe Burrow type of year? And according to DK, he is elite. See, you've got a headphone handler there for you.
Well, yeah, I'm just gonna do like an in-show test here to see if these will work better than the ones I have. But anyway, I want to see the quote, first of all. Like, that's where I'm at right now. Like, did he really say that? Because Joe Burrow,
I've seen like there's like a video, and I've seen people talking about it. I'm not going to click on it just to what, knowing that that's the take, but even beforehand, to me, it's just so far off base.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt in that maybe what he said was taken out of context. You know what I mean? But like a straight up comparison of Steve Angeli and Joe Burrow it's asinine. I don't even know what else to say. Like, comparing Joe Burrow to almost any quarterback and what Joe Burrow was able to do his final year in college is preposterous. Like, he put forth one of the best quarterback seasons of all time, right?
And you're going to say that Steve Angeli is going to go to that.
Like, come on, man. Like, I wouldn't even say, like, if he could have said CJ Carr, and I'd have been like, dude, come on now. Like, stop it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like there's that's a good point, actually. Because I was just starting to think, okay, we know the Angeli backers are out there, and we don't want, everyone saying that we're hating on your guy, Steve Angeli, because that's not it. I think that's a great point. None of these three guys in this competition would I make that kind of prediction.
No.
We're going to say he's going to have over 5,000 yards, and I think it was 50-some touchdown passes. Really?
Win the Heisman Trophy. Like,
we're going to go from one start for Angeli, since he was specifically talking about him, to a handful of snaps, like for the other guys. I'm sorry. That's not happening for any of these three guys this year, because you're also projecting then that Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison are each going to have over 1,500 yards this year, after it's been 6 years since they've had 1,000-yard receiver. Like, you're going to have two guys over 1,500. Like, that's what you're going to have if the quarterback's going to have that kind of production. Are we willing to go on that kind of limb for these receivers who, are tested to a certain extent, but still relatively unproven in terms of if they can be those kind of guys? You're going to make that kind of leap?
That's just
he got you to look, though. He got you to click. He got you to watch his video, because he knows the Notre Dame lovers are out there, and you're just going to eat it up.
Right. And then throw it back out. Yep. Like, I would have said this is a crazy take no matter who we're talking about, right? So it is baffling to me that somebody would say that is what is going to happen, right? He doesn't have the weapons that Joe Burrow had. He is like, nobody even anticipated Joe Burrow was going to have a Joe Burrow season prior to that season happening, right? Like, I remember Brian talking about how LSU was going to make the playoff, and everybody's like, ooh, I don't know about that. And then they have this historic offensive season with Joe Burrow at the helm. Like, nobody saw that one coming. Sorry, nobody saw that coming. And to say that any quarterback is going to do what he did and project that to happen is just bad analysis. It just is. So, and it's clickbait. I completely agree with you. It's absolute clickbait.
DJ wants to know, do you expect a jump in defensive line production? Can you put a percentage on it?
I think you're going to see a jump in like sack numbers. I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but I think you're going to have some dynamic guys on the edge. and they are setting them up for success by moving them out to a 9 technique and that kind of a deal. So like, I know they keep saying a 7 technique, but that's not true. Like it's a 9. You're outside the
Vince knows the answer now. When Chris Ash was asked about 7 technique, Vince knows the answer. It's actually
it's a
9
7
technique.
There's no tight end. If you're outside the tight end, it's a 9. Like that's just football.
Well, 7 technique is shaded up on the inside shoulder of the tight end, I thought.
It's on the outside shoulder of the defensive end. Like a 9 is outside the tight. Like they're going to be lined up on the outside of the tight end, not the inside of the tight end.
Now that's not what I heard based on everything that I heard from Chris Ash the other day.
Oh, but okay. Well, I'll tell you where I got my info.
But they are lining them up wider.
Yes,
we can say that.
Fine. So they are setting them up for success. I do think there will be more sack numbers at the end of the day. I'm not going to put a percentage on it because that's not how I operate, but I think those numbers will go up.
And I think that these, like the interior guys that they get are going to, will they be Howard Cross and Riley Mills? I don't know that maybe they'll go to that level, but I think they'll at least be in the ballpark. I think that they will be, with the experience that they've got, I think that they'll give them consistent inside play, and this will probably be the 3rd spring in a row that we've said it, but I also expect more production out of Jason Onye this year. And I like that size that he's put on, like that extra 15, 20 pounds. I think that that's going to help him quite a bit as an interior guy. So I think that he's, maybe that kind of pushes him over the top because they've needed some guys topping 300 bills for a while. And he's over there. He's over that mark. So percentage-wise, I don't know, but Bryce Young, I think, is going to be a really big contributor, and obviously a lot of it is going to depend upon how healthy Jordan Botelho and how healthy Boubacar Traore are, and what they're able to get out of them early on. Because if even one of them is, completely healthy early in the season and able to play opposite of Bryce Young, and you've got, you're able to plug in that middle with that experience with the transfer guys at the nose guard and the 3 technique, I think that that's going to help out quite a bit as well. I have no idea what happened to Vince. He just disappeared, just went away on my screen, into the nether. He's trying to come back, but it doesn't look like it's working right now. Interesting. So there were a couple of different questions about Micah Gilbert, and Josh wants to know if Gilbert's injury will affect him cracking the 2 deep in the fall. I think that at least for right now, it has set him back, and he has been out a little bit. Like the practices, the partial practices that we were out, both the first day and then last week, Micah Gilbert wasn't out there. And obviously, he has the injury, so he's not able to do much right now. And I felt like this was a pretty big opportunity for him this spring to make some impact. But at the same time, like once you get past Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse, and obviously Malachi Fields, who's not here yet, but once you get past those 2 guys, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for somebody else to step in. So Vince, I know you left and now you're back. My point is though, like even though this would have been a big spring for Micah Gilbert to kind of make some inroads and kind of bolster himself, I feel like between the summer and fall training camp, he still has plenty of opportunity, to kind of do that heading toward next season. I don't think that this spring is going to eliminate him from being able to potentially crack the 2 deep.
Nope, completely with you on that one. Everybody has to remember it's still spring. Like there's still fall, there's still summer. Like if this happened in the fall, yeah, it hurts his chances of getting into the lineup. This is still spring. There is still so much time between now and the season where he can make some inroads and get into the rotation and all of that. Like take spring for what it is. Like, that's the biggest thing for me. Take spring for what it is, whether it's guys competing for a job, whatever. Take it for what it is. He's got plenty of time. If that's going to happen, if he's going to rise to the top, he'll still rise to the top.
Good response. Good rally. Good rally. I like the way you came back there.
Thank you.
You worked it out. See, This is what happens when your kid doubles as your engineer.
Oh,
apparently they boot you off the computer.
All of a sudden, I was like, "Is my internet still working?" Because like everything just started spinning, and like it was a disaster on my end. So I'm gonna have to troubleshoot when the show is over, and try to figure out what the heck is going on over here.
By the way, DJ's got an over-under for you for Saturday's practice. Over-under on how many times you and Brian will say, it was only one practice after Saturdays.
I'll only say that if Steve Angeli lights the world on fire. That's the only way that I will say that.
Otherwise, if it's anyone else, you'll say, it was the most important practice ever.
That's exactly right. Well, and I'm looking forward to it. If it is what we think it's going to be, like, I haven't seen one of these in a few years because there's always some sort of something going on where I can't make it. And so I'm excited just to see it and be there. So I'm hoping. What I'm worried about is, are there going to be enough players playing to really have some legit one-on-one opportunities? That's going to be the thing for me. You know what I mean? So we'll see. Numbers are down this spring. That's what worries me.
Sorry, I'm having problems pressing the button now.
Having all kinds of issues.
Mike wants to know if the two Notre Dame basketball coaches being on the hot seat is real. He says he believes it to a point.
I don't believe that Niele Ivey is on the hot seat. Is it a conversation? Sure. Like, as far as what do we need to do to get over the hump here, over the Sweet 16 hump? Like, we want to be an elite program. What do we got to do? And I'm sure there's going to be discussion about transfer portal and kids jumping in, all of that stuff. I mean, that's just a state of the program kind of a conversation that you have when you're getting evaluated every year, right? And that, I assume, like any job, the athletic director has kind of an end of the year evaluation. They sit down, they talk, they figure, they talk about stuff, right? That's going to be a question. Do I believe Niele Ivey's on the hot seat? I do not believe Niele Ivey's anywhere near the hot seat. I'm sorry. She does too much for the program. Now,
I mean, literally, I feel like we'll do these one at a time.
Yeah.
We'll do Shrewsbury next. We'll go ahead and talk about Niele Ivey right now. I feel like literally she is years away from the hot seat. I mean,
I absolutely agree.
Like, you can be disappointed with going to the Sweet 16 and losing in the Sweet 16 4 years in a row, but you're still in the NCAA tournament. You're still hosting those first and second round games for the last 3 years, which means more revenue for the athletic department. Yep. And you're still, you're selling out games. You're filling Purcell Pavilion on a consistent basis. Like those things do matter. Like if next year you're in the middle of the next season and you've got these empty seats all over the place, now that starts to be a little bit of a concern. But like, this is more about kind of what you were saying. You sit down with the athletic director. Okay, what went wrong? Like, what do you think went wrong? What needs to happen, to go farther? I just feel like this is a very introspective offseason, the most introspective offseason, I think, that Niele Ivey has had, because as I've talked to her the last few years, again, after those first 2 seasons, when there was a lot of you did have a lot of players go into the transfer portal. They were all players who she inherited on the roster. Those kind of players went in. And then for a couple years, you literally had none. But now all of a sudden, you do have this popping up here again, So I do think that you have to turn and look, and you can't just say, well, none of this is on me. You're the head coach of the program. You're the face of the program. You've done a great job both recruiting and winning a lot of games, relating to players, embracing fan support, and all that different stuff. You've done a great job. But now, because your program has stalled at the same level 4 years in a row, and you arguably have, like, I was thinking about this today, like, especially considering the turnover that they had right now, like, we could look back 5 or 10 years from now, and this could end up being the most talented roster that she's had in that stretch, you know? Now, the other side of this, as many a great coach has told me before, it's not always your most talented team that ends up doing the most winning when it's all said and done. So, like, the story has a lot to be written going forward. And to me, this is kind of a big pivotal early turning point period for Nail Ivy, but she is far from the hot seat. You again, like, you're literally talking a few years down the road, I think, before it ever gets to any of that kind of level.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely.
Because again, don't overlook the fact that you're in the tournament and you're doing all these things. And we talked about it yesterday. There are probably 6 to 7 what you would call elite recruiters in the women's college basketball game. And Niele Ivey is one of them. So let's say you change the head. Let's say you decided to make a move and now Niele Ivey is not the head coach. Well, none of those other, 5 or 6 or however many are probably going to be viable candidates to come here because they're all running ultra successful programs of their own and getting to the Elite 8 and Final Fours themselves. So who are you going to get that is a mix of both a great strategic game coach and recruiter who's going to come in and at least give you the same results? That's what the next question has to be, if it ever came to the point where you were going to make a change. So you can't overlook the fact and take for granted where you're getting right now. It's an early speed bump, though, I think, and what's going to be a long and successful career for Ivy.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm in that boat. She is nowhere near the hot seat. That is not the conversation that is taking place when she sits down with Pete Bavacqua. Like, not even close. Like, that is not the conversation. We can flip it over to men's basketball, and I will also say that he's not on the hot seat. But if there's it's year 2. Like, he just finished year 2. He's not on the hot seat. Now, there are some disturbing trends with the men's team. And if they are, as you said, going to be dumping all these resources into the men's team, and we're sitting here a year from now with the same outcome, then we're talking hot seat after year 3. But right now, I'm not talking hot seat because he's not on the hot seat.
If he was on the hot seat, the incoming recruiting class he has is is so far the best that he's had. I mean, the first 2 years he's had to cobble together a roster, and literally the first year, like, you talk about, like, the definition of cobbling together a roster. And then, you were without Marcus Burton for part of this season. Obviously, your best player, one of the best players in the ACC. You were without him for a good chunk of the season. And, and then Shrewsbury ends up out, his son ends up out at the end of the season. And it's still, like, there's still work to be done, but he has had to go to the portal in each of the first 2 years just to put a team on the court.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, like, so I agree. This is not hot seat territory right now, but a year from now,
right,
if you're having the same results and you're not even approaching the NCAA tournament bubble, that's a completely different conversation. And for me, that would put him on the hot seat at that point after 3 years.
Yep, completely agree with that. And but, like, again, if he was truly on the hot seat, if Pete Bavacqua was like, dude, this is it, they're not going to be pumping in all these resources into the men's program. They just wouldn't be doing that. You know what I mean? For the potential of firing him, like, that's just not the way that it would go. They believe in Micah Shrewsbury, and so they're like, okay, we're going to show you that we believe in you by giving you these resources. So that doesn't tell me that he's on the hot seat. Fans could be pissed off, and fans could think he's on the hot seat, but the reaction of the Notre Dame administration tells me he's not on the hot seat.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Mark, back to the quarterback competition. How difficult is it to have an effective QB competition with 3 quarterbacks? Wouldn't it be better to choose the best 2, at least going into fall camp?
Mark, I actually completely agree with you. I think it is very difficult to have a quality quarterback competition with 3 quarterbacks, especially in spring when you don't have 3 full teams for them to go with. And so I find that to be very difficult. I think an ideal world, they are down to 2 going into fall, but that's only going to happen if it's very obvious that there's a number 3. And if it's very obvious that there's a number 3, then the coaches are obviously going to have that conversation with that player. And you might see a transfer, or you might not. And maybe they're like, screw you, I'm in this competition. Let's roll. Like, I don't know what that conversation would be like and who it would be with. But I agree with you, Mark, that it would be much easier going into the fall if they only had 2.
And I think that it will be 2 going into the fall.
Ooh,
like,
look at you. Yes.
The spring gives you the luxury of being able to split reps between 3 quarterbacks because you're trying to give these guys looks because you're not preparing for a game on a week in, week out basis. Or, like it's not fall training camp where you've got a month to get ready for that first game, where you've basically got 2 weeks to be in camp mode to get as many reps as possible. And then hopefully by that point you have your decision made and then you start to prepare for the season opener. And yeah, so I don't think they're going to go into fall training camp. Like if all 3 guys are still here in the fall, one of those guys is going to be getting number 3 reps.
Yeah.
And like if it's still a competition, which it sounds like it should be probably, at least going into training camp, I think that it's going to be 2 guys predominantly getting those snaps. I don't think there's going to be a third person part of that competition.
Yeah, I really do think it should be. I mean, we've all coached before, and it doesn't matter what sport you're coaching. Like, I just feel like if you're
they've got a pretty good idea right now of
if
who
you're
the top 2 guys are. If there's 3 guys, there's no way they're all even.
Right. If you're trying to compare 3 guys, you know who the third guy is. Like or maybe there's 1 and then the 2 guys below him are kind of equal. Like there's going to be some separation by the end of spring. It's how the coaches deal with that and deal with the roster to show us on the outside that that's the case, right? I think inside the program, they're going to know.
Yes, exactly. DJ, if you had to choose today, who would be your game 1 offensive tackles?
Gerby Lambert and why is his name escaping me? The starting right, Neil Wagner. Those would be my 2. Yes.
I still lean toward Jagasaw as my left tackle. I really am curious to see, like, you listen to Joe Rudolph, you listen to Charles Jagasaw. Remember we played those comments last week. Like you listen to him and it feels like he's hoping it's like, well, we're just kind of dabbling with this spring. Well, like he really wants to play tackle, but as he said, he'll do whatever. You listen to Joe Rudolph and like you heard him make those comments about, man, you look at this guy, we plug him in there in the middle of the Penn State game and he looks like he could be one of the best guards in the country. Like, so it really sounds like maybe that's where he ends up. So if that's the case, it would be Gerby Lambert and Emil Wagner as my 2 tackles for sure.
The fear is if Jagasaw is actually playing guard, that they're reserving the left tackle spot for
Knapp.
Yeah. And that would bother me. He's not a tackle. I mean, I will give him all the props in the world for what he was able to do last year, and I have no problem doing that. He did yeoman's work for a freshman who's not a tackle. You know what I mean? He's just not a tackle. He's an interior player. So that's why I put Gerby Lambert out there. So, yeah, again, that's my offensive line. They haven't called me up to ask me yet, my opinion. So we'll see how this goes.
Funny how they don't ask our opinions.
I know. It's not cool.
Mark also wants to know thoughts on going after Stanford edge rusher David Bailey. He said he's concerned Notre Dame injuries will drag on in recovery next year.
He's not coming to Notre Dame because Notre Dame cannot promise him the reps that he will get at other places, and they probably cannot promise him, because they cannot promise him the reps, he will also not get the NIL money that he can get elsewhere. And so I think it's a waste of time to go after him. Notre Dame is just fine on the edge. You cannot think about, oh my God, what if so-and-so gets injured? Like, that's not how you build a roster. You build a roster based on who's on your roster, and they have a ton of talent on the edge, and that's not where Notre Dame needs to be concerned.
I see Jesse's chiming in on the drive from Cleveland to South Bend. He's actually coming in today because the reason you're going to be with me the next couple of days, they're going to the Cubs home opener this weekend. He says 3 in the spring provides proper fair evaluation for the Fall Cats. I can get down with that.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, and this year is going to be like, just dynamic in the cut scenario, right? Because they got to get down to 105, and they're at like 120-ish right now, from what I understand. So there's a lot of guys to cut, and there's going to be scholarship players that get cut, in my opinion. So, whether they jump into the portal or whether they just decide not to play football anymore, there are some walk-ons, in my opinion, that are more valuable than some of the lower level scholarship guys. And I would cut them before I would cut some of the walk-ons.
Ooh. Did you notice your guy Jay Fish, Justin Fisher, playing a little more tight end again this spring?
They're cross-training.
They actually brought him out for the media last week, and it's sounding like, I think, and somebody kind of asked him about that, the 105-man roster. It feels like feels to me like some of that cross-training maybe, and the fact that he played so much special teams last year, yep, like he's probably in a pretty good spot in terms of being on that 105.
I completely agree with your assessment of the situation.
Excuse me. Outbound wants to know, do we think Rudolph is trying to make Knapp his Joe Alt? There's no way that Knapp is ever going to be going to be Joe Alt. Like, just from a physical standpoint, Anthony Knapp is never going to be a high first-round draft pick like Joe Alt. He might be a first-round draft pick in a couple of years. I don't know. Like, I'll be curious to see what they are able to turn his body into, because like that's the biggest thing to me is the strength, the strength thing with Knapp. He just needs to get a lot stronger, if he's truly going to be that kind of left tackle. Now, again, like, based on everything Joe Rudolph has said and what we're seeing and hearing, it sure seems like Joe Rudolph wants to stick with Anthony Knapp out there as a tackle.
Yep.
Vince has just got that look on his face like, I got nothing. All right. Scott L. Esquire. What? Go ahead.
No, I was just laughing at John's comment that the Pirates are 2.5 games out of first place.
Oh,
that is
a week and a half into the season, or is it even a full week at this point? No, it's not even a full week.
They played 7 games. They're in last place. They're 2-5, and yes, they are 2.5 games out of first. So I think John just likes to needle. I think he's a needler. I think he's just poking the bear. I think that's what that is. But anyway, sorry.
Scott wants to know what changes Notre Dame women's basketball must make in order to close the gap with championship caliber programs. Will the AD put pressure on her to make specific changes she might be reluctant to make? Like, that last part, I don't know. Like, this is a new athletic director, Pete Bavacqua, and so far, I don't think he's had to make a hire so far, right? Like, in terms of a head coach.
No, that's true.
And so we really, how he'll, what his style is, what his approach is to this kind of stuff. I think that is still to be seen, but I think that it is an interesting question. Again, like, is it just a conversation where they sit and talk about, okay, this happened, where do you go from here? What might you do going forward? Those kind of things. What kind of suggestions / pushes might he make? That's a really good question. In terms of, the first part, closing the gap, I think the big thing that I think stands out for everyone right now is they've got to get this front court situation figured out. And I'm not just talking about short term right now. Like Maddie Westbeld, great forward, all conference forward, who, over the course of her career at Notre Dame, her production was down a little bit this year, obviously, but, that was in part due to the injury that she had and, like coming back, with what was already in the front court. But like Koval was the only post player that they had brought in out of high school. And this is, it's basically 4 recruiting cycles now. She was the only post player, an elite one, at least according to the ranking coming out of high school. But now she's gone after 1 year. And they've done pretty well bringing in some of these, front court players out of the portal. Obviously, Leah Tu King was great this year. Ebo was great a couple of years ago. Again, Watson has been solid, but that to me is the biggest, especially when you look at like how other teams are succeeding and the kind of players that they have in the front court. And I don't remember where I saw this. It might've been in the chat earlier. I mean, Niele obviously, during her playing time was the beneficiary of having, one of the greatest post players that the college game has had with Ruth Riley,
True.
So like she won with a dominant 6'5" true pivot post player down low during her playing time. They won a national championship together at Notre Dame. They've got to figure that out. Like that's what, to me, that is the biggest missing piece, because she can go out and she can recruit all these elite guards, which is great, but they've got to get that post play figured out, both in recruiting and the development aspect of it. That's the biggest hole to me.
Agreed. No, you're a lot closer to the program, and I think all of those things are things that need to be talked about.
DJ said it on the board. There you go. I knew I saw it somewhere, DJ. I was trying to cite where I saw somebody say it, but I couldn't remember specifically who said it. That was a great point. I will give it
credit, baby.
I will ding it, and I will give you the points for that one. Yeah, Christopher. Betts, he says that's why UCLA is going to win it all. And then I saw last night during the broadcast of that McDonald's All-American game that Lauren Betts, the current UCLA center, her younger sister, is going to be a teammate with her next year. And she's another big post player. They got to get them. They got to get them. Again, in both recruiting and the development aspect. All right. Then Mark wants to know thoughts on someone paying $1.1 million for Paul Skeens rookie card.
That's people with a lot of extra money. I mean, I don't know. I've never been into the baseball card, buying situation. No baseball card is worth that kind of money to me that I would actually pay for. I would love to sell a card for that if somebody gave it to me for free. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Like that's way over, like, because I just don't think that ultimately baseball cards, and this is from someone who used to collect baseball cards growing up and, thought I had some pretty cool cards. You just don't get your return on the investment.
Yeah.
If you really want a Paul Skeens card and you think that Paul Skeens is great and you've got that kind of money to throw around, then great. Go throw out $1.1 million.
That's
but
crazy.
Not me. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have the FU money, Joe, to your point. Neither does Vince. I know that.
God, no. No, I wouldn't. I would be hard pressed to spend like $100 for a card. Like I was like, no, I'm out, unless I could be guaranteed I'm going to get a huge return on investment, the ROI of it. There's no way, you know what I mean? And I would never be the kind of person that would want to like keep a card and like treasure it, you know what I mean? And just like have it and, just pull it out and oogle it. And, like that's not something I would ever do either. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go, baby. Rapid fire on a Wednesday.
Here it is. So we talked to Notre Dame wide receiver KK Smith today. He talked about his work this spring.
playing fast. I know the plays, so it's like it's nothing like I'm not being hesitant. I'm just going off the ball. I feel like I'm high pointing really well right now. I need to work on still a couple things, but I mean I feel like I'm high pointing and playing fast right now. I've been itching to get on the field, man, and to be able to showcase what I can do because like I said, I do believe I can play at this level and flourish at this level. And I've been showing that in practice every other day, and I'm trying to get it to where it's consistent and the coaches can rely on me, same with the quarterbacks.
All right, so there you heard KK Smith, Vince. Are we ready to factor Smith into the 2 deep next fall?
No, I'm not ready to do that yet because I haven't seen him do anything. Injury has really derailed his career up to this point, and he's going to have an opportunity, obviously, in the spring with some of these guys out and some of these guys not here yet and all of those different kinds of things. I want to see it. I want to see him be consistent, and I want to see his speed, and I want to see, his route running and all of those different things. And it's nothing against him specifically, but there's other guys I would put out there before him right now. And so, I got to see it. So I'm not ready to do that just yet.
I'm not quite ready yet either. Seeing him this Saturday and seeing him at the Blue Gold game, I think might give us a little bit better idea of where he's developed. But, because like you heard him talking about, like I know what I'm supposed to be doing now and, like all those kind of things. He's going into year 3. So, you're right. Injuries have played a factor into where he is in his development because he did, he missed all of his freshman season and then, was hurt toward the end of last season as well. But he's still got a ways to go, like in terms of the full developmental, aspect of it. I think like it sounds like he's just starting to catch up to that. So yeah. I do want to, we haven't seen him this spring because of the limited access that we've had. We haven't seen him go up against an actual DB. I'd like to see that. And hopefully we get an opportunity to do that this Saturday as well as, in the Blue Gold game as well, to get kind of a more clear, at least early not early, but just an evaluation of where he is, because like you can say that, okay, it's like, okay, he's running behind Greathouse and Faison and, and those guys right now, but I'd like to see him actually go up against somebody for real. That's something that we haven't been able to see for a while. So Smith was also asked about Notre Dame's top 3 quarterbacks today. Here's his response to that.
I'm liking it. That you get like a mix of a little bit of everything with all 3 of them. Like CJ CJ, Kenny, they like to run a little bit more than Steve. But Steve, like they all got on-time throws to us. All deep ball, really they throw the deep ball well. So I mean, it's gonna be competitive. I honestly can't say who I'd put in front right now. But I mean, it's gonna be a good show when we get down to it.
Okay, Vince. So you heard him talk about the quote. Did anything jump out at you?
Very political. He started to say a nice thing about Steve and then was like, and they all throw the ball well. Like I don't know. I thought that was interesting because he's like, CJ and Kenny, they run around well, and Angeli, and they all throw the ball deep. Like it was interesting. But then of course he went political and he's like, I don't know who's in front,
Right.
So,
right.
And I'm sure that's
which I wasn't expecting him to do. So, like just to get that out of the way. But
yeah, I'm sure that they are told, hey, you don't have a favorite. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure that's part of it.
Exactly. But, I did think it was interesting that when he talked about CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie, like he said that they both are running more than Steve Angeli. Like we know that of the 3, Angeli is going to be the guy, who is, the less athletic of the 3. But the fact that, like, to me, again, like how much I'm reading into this, I don't know. But the fact that he had Carr and Minchie as the guys who are running more, like that kind of piqued my curiosity a little bit.
Well, and we know that this offense can support a running quarterback. We know that that's a thing, right? And that adds, that adds to it, right? I mean, if you can do both at a high level, you're going to be tough to stop. Bottom line, right? So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see.
I just think, again, because I think that most people discount CJ Carr's running ability because he's not obviously a pure runner like either Riley Leonard or Kenny Minchie. But as we saw in the opportunities that we got to see of him last spring, he is mobile. It's, he's not like a slow-footed, has to stand in the pocket type guy. Like, he's more a pocket quarterback, but he can move when he needs to. And so I don't think that is nearly as absent from his game as maybe some people might want to think that it's absent from his game. That can be a part of it.
And we've heard multiple people talk about the fact that Kenny and CJ can run. Like, that's a thing. You know what I mean? Like, Kenny is the most athletic. He's the best runner, but CJ is just a notch below him. And then there's Steve, who's not a runner, regardless of what we saw a few years ago in the blue gold game. Like, that's not who he is. He can move the chains if need be, that kind of a thing, but he's not a runner. You know what I mean? So, that again, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but that's just a fact. That's just a fact.
Yep. Going back to the KK Smith talking about himself, as DJ pointed out, he did say he needs to be more consistent. And I think that for these receivers, because we played a cut. I think we had it from Mike Denbrock when he was talking about cleaning up the drop pass, the drop balls that they had last year, and just the ability to be, more consistent with the precision of running the routes and just doing those little things. And again, like, I think that is something where KK Smith is like starting to get closer to that. But there was, like another quote that he had where he basically said, like, every other day I'm kind of doing it, but I need to string it together every day. And I think that sounds like that is really the key for him. Like, how many consecutive days can you string together where you're doing all the things, you're doing them right all the time. So, yeah. Okay. Mike Denbrock now.
Oh, boy.
This is Mike Denbrock. And I mentioned this cut at the end of the show. You might remember the quote that he had when he was asked about Steve Angeli at the end of his press conference at the end of last week about how Angeli carries himself this spring like the starting quarterback job is his. So let's listen to that cut from Mike Denbrock.
I mean, I think it stems from confidence, right? More than anything else. And I think he knows for maybe the first time that he's in a real battle. And really, if you had to, like, say, well, who's got the most experience, which I know you guys love to do on podcasts and radio shows and whatever you're doing, we would have to lean, he's got to be the favorite, you know what I mean, type of thing. So, I mean, I think all those things play into where he's at mentally and saying, you know what, this is my job, and when they give it to me, I'm going to be ready to go.
Did you feel like he was talking directly to you, Vince, when he said that?
I would love to think that Mike Denbrock is listening to anything I have to say, but I don't think that is the case. But I also think he was throwing it into the face of every media member who is giving Steve
he wants to lean on,
because of his quote unquote experience.
Yes.
Which is asinine. I said that word twice now in this show.
You like to sling it, man. You like to sling those darts whenever you can.
Well, I mean, if you want to be a pro Steve guy, that is fine. I have no problem with that. But let's talk about how he throws the ball, and he's good at short yardage stuff, and he's a leader off the field, and awesome. Let's have that conversation.
Yes.
But let's not use the box of more experience, because that's not a thing. It's not. You have three guys with no experience. Let's be honest. That's what you've got here. I would venture to guess that both Kenny Minchie and CJ Carr both played in bigger games in their high school career than Steve Angeli played in the Sun Bowl that he started. You know what I mean? So, that's not experience to me.
Yeah.
It's just not. So, that's not even a thing. And I think that's what Mike Denbrock was saying, basically. He's like, you guys love talking about his experience. That's what you love to do.
Yeah.
Not a thing.
He's literally got a handful of experience. I keep saying it. The guy's been here for 3 years.
Right.
And this is not like we're not ripping Steve Angeli because of this. Just to clarify, because people like to think that we're picking on Steve Angeli all the time, but the experience that he has is not quantifiably, as you kind of just pointed out, that much more significant than anything the other two guys have. Like, they've all been there at practice. They've all been in this offensive system with the same offensive coordinator for the exact same amount of time.
Yeah. Yep.
And Angeli's experience strung out over 3 years amounts to about 4 games of experience. You're going to tell me that matters that much? Like 4 games spread out? Like, it's not like he was the starting quarterback for the last 4 games of last season, or even the last 4 games of the season before that. Like, he's got in there with some spot duty. He's done his job when he's been asked to go in there and do his job, and that's it. And I agree. Like, it just doesn't weigh that much more heavily to me than what these other guys, quote unquote, lack in experience.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Bum, 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 bum.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
Speaking of quarterbacks and experience, fill in the blank. It's blank that former Notre Dame quarterback Drew Pine is leaving Missouri in search of his 4th college team.
I actually did the research on this because somebody asked me a question about him specifically. And they had like 2018 commits to Notre Dame, 2019 signs with Notre Dame. And like every year there was something else for him. And I was like, yes, all of those things they're like, how many years does he have left? And I was like, well, he's got his 6th year basically, because his first year was the COVID year.
Mm-hmm.
And he has
only exemption.
Yeah. And his first year, he only played 2 games. His second year, he only played in 2 games. His 4th year, he only played in 2 games. So obviously he's going to get a red shirt out of that. So he gets 6 total. And he has been in college for 5, believe it or not. And he'll be on his 4th school for his 6th year because he was at Notre Dame for 3. So just absolutely crazy, just nuts. Like, here's what I'll say. More power to him if somebody's going to give an opportunity to continue to play football and he can kind of push off adulthood a little bit longer. Like, I will always be for that. Like, there's the one guy who's in like his 9th year of college or some nonsense. Like, hey man, if it's legal and somebody's giving you the opportunity and you're not ready to be an adult yet, peace be with you. Like, I wish I could have hung on to my childhood longer.
Keep playing while you can.
100%. Because as the famous quote goes, somebody at some point is going to tell you that you can't play anymore.
Right.
And apparently that hasn't happened for Drew Pine yet. So more power to him, man. Take your flat tire out there, your spare tire, and go play at another school and have a blast, man, and get a master's or whatever. Like,
maybe he'll end up playing for Kurt Signetti. Who knows? Like,
that would be fantastic.
To me, it is like, as much as people, took their shots at Tommy Rees and wanted to complain about Marcus Freeman's first season, this dude won 8 games as the starting quarterback at Notre Dame in Marcus Freeman's first season as a head football coach. 8 games, 3 of them against ranked teams, including Clemson, who was ranked number 4 at Notre Dame Stadium. Now, obviously, he didn't have, much of a, stat line in that game, but they won that game with Drew Pine as the starting quarterback, and they went on the road against another top team, top 10 team, USC, and only lost by 11 points. Now, part of it because of his own turnovers, but they only lost that game by 11 points.
Yeah.
To, a quarterback who would end up being the number 1 pick in the NFL draft the next year. Like, and somehow Tommy Rees, Gino Guidugli, like, they managed. Was Gino here that year? Yeah, he was, right?
He's been here for 3 years.
Going into year 4.
Like, he's been here as long as Angeli. They came in together, I believe.
In any case, Tommy Reese figured out a way to win 8 games with Drew Pine. And you're like, you remember what Drew Pine looked like and do your effing job and everything else, right? And now
You remember.
here we are 4 years later looking for another job. So, but I agree. He probably needs to transfer down a level if he really wants a chance to go play someplace.
Yeah, he should have done that before. Not look, going to Arizona State is kind of like transferring down a level, but then going to Missouri isn't. So like he needs to go group of 5. He needs to go 1AA and go have a ball game. You know what I mean? Go have a season. No problem.
Patrick doesn't like your Angeli take.
That's okay.
He says, I love you, but that's such a bad take. The mental prep to be QB2, love you guys, but disappointed by such a naive take. High school game more than a bowl game? Question mark.
Hey, that I was being a little sarcastic when I said that. So I will give you that one, my man, Patrick. I will give you that. That's fine. I was being sarcastic. But if we're going to give him that one game, let's give him the one game, his one start. Is that really the tipping of the scale for experience over the other 2 guys? I don't think it is. I don't.
I would agree with that.
That's not enough for me. One start is not enough. And one drive against Penn State and one start against, in the Sun Bowl against half a team, that's not enough to say that he's got all this experience. That's where I'm at. So I agree with you. I was making a joke about the bowl game in high school and all that. That was a joke. You called me on it. You win. But I still stick by my experience thing on that one. That's just not enough to tip the scales for me.
I agree. Like I'm going to take the high school, game out of it because that was your take. I'm just saying it's a relative amount of experience that he has, like relative to the others. Yeah, right. He has more experience, but I think that's Mike Denbrock's point. Like it's a relative amount of experience. It's the sum total of about 4 games worth of experience spread over 3 years. That is not that much.
And the best, and actually, yes, that was my take. But that's kind of what I heard Mike Denbrock say. Like, you guys want to talk about his experience all the time. He doesn't have it. Like, it's just not a thing. And the way he said his quote, the way he came across with that quote tells me that's not part of this decision-making process. That's what it said to me.
Right. Like that is not nearly as important as what we see on the field.
Correct. 100%. 100%. Patrick's back. Let's throw Patrick back up here. He says, I hear you guys. Good retort. Thanks for the engagement. Convinced. Yeah. That's all it took. Yes. My man. No, Patrick, I appreciate you calling me out, man. I actually do appreciate that because I can go off on a tangent. I know people are surprised by that.
Have been known to.
Yeah.
Have been known to.
I appreciate you, Patrick.
Ooh, Joe says BC for Drew Pine would be awesome. Notre Dame spanks him when they play this year.
Oh, it's little brother. No comment on BC.
Let's see. Are there any other spots like on Notre Dame's, like any Notre Dame opponents that he could end up with potentially?
Great question.
Let's see. Miami, no. A&M, no. Purdue?
That's a pot. Well,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Arkansas, probably a no. Boise State, no. NC State?
I don't know what their quarterback's
not sure off the top. Actually, hang on just a second. I just saw something.
Stanford's definitely one. It's like a mass exodus at Stanford.
CJ Bailey. I made like a little spreadsheet for some of Notre Dame's opponents with the quarterback situation. CJ Bailey. Purdue. Barry Odom brought in 3 transfers. So they're already full, including Malachi Singleton. Pittsburgh, it looks like Eric Holstein. Let's see.
What about Stanford?
That's what I was just looking at. Stanford. Elijah Brown is the front runner. They lost the only 2 other guys, Ashton Daniels and Justin Lamson, to the portal. So Stanford could be a possibility.
Make him a Cardinal.
Yeah.
Well, we know he can handle the academics there, unless he forgot what Notre Dame was about when he was at Arizona State and Missouri. Hey, Stanford, let's go. Stanford.
Beef Eater says too slow for Navy. Yeah, and that whole, like military aspect of it as well, 6 years down the road might also kind of disqualify him at this point. So, all right, CBS college football analyst Gary Danielson announced he's going to retire after this upcoming season, and Charles Davis is going to take his place in the #1 college football booth along with Brad Nessler. Scale of 1 to 10, how much you going to miss Gary Danielson?
I think like an 8. I think Gary Danielson's solid. I like listening to Gary Danielson. He's a pro. So I would put like the 7-8 range. I think he's really, really good. I think I'll miss him.
I put it at a 5. I think they did the Purdue game and the USC game for Notre Dame last year. And it fit, like Gary Danielson has been pretty good for a long time, but I really feel like that booth specifically, especially for being CBS's top booth, and they're supposed to have, the best game. Like I always felt like they were the least prepared in terms of background information on players and just kind of knowing some of the simple stuff sometimes, even pronunciations with a lot of them for a national broadcast. So I'd put mine at a 4 in terms of how much. Like prime Gary Danielson, a lot better than the Gary Danielson we're getting now.
Yeah, you convinced me. I'm with you. I forgot about that, to be honest with you. That was a train wreck is what that was. That was an absolute train wreck, and I was embarrassed for them. And I think part of it is the combo. It's like when you've got a teacher who lets kids slide and all of those other things, and the kids are just like, they're just there. Like, you got to raise the bar a little bit, you know what I mean? And the kids will reach it. I feel like the bar wasn't very high, and so they didn't reach it. Like, the bar's down here. They're like, we'll just show up and do our thing.
Yep.
Like, it wasn't good. It was. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't good. I was thinking more like prime time. In his prime, I should say.
Okay.
So I'm with you. That was embarrassing. It was.
The numbers are all over the place here. John is going to miss him a 10. DJ's a 3. Christopher is a 1. TD4ND is a 2. I think I said my number was 4.
Well, maybe he can go do Pirates games.
Christopher said he's an old Tony Romo. Come on, man.
Wow.
Gonna smack my guy Romo around like that?
Ouch.
So what about Charles Davis, who's going to take his place? Are you in or you're out on Charles Davis?
I don't know who that is off the top of my head, and I didn't bother to look him up. So I'm going to say I'm in. Let's get some new blood.
He's been doing NFL games with Ian Eagle for CBS for the last few years. To me, he's kind of one of these, like, I feel like he's a little bit too up with people on everybody, like it's not like he's calling everything a great play. It's just like, I don't feel like he's giving, valid criticism most of the time. I'd like to hear. It's like a little too shiny, happy people sometimes for me.
Yeah.
Which maybe is good for college as opposed to the NFL.
Fair.
I don't know.
No, that's fair. Maybe he'll take the time to learn how to pronounce their names.
There you go. That'd be a start, right?
And I mean, you're talking, what was most embarrassing is you're talking about a team like Notre Dame. Like, it's not like this group of 5 team that you've never heard of. Like, some of the names you just know without even.
You're not doing a MAC game. You're doing Notre Dame.
Yes. And they just didn't know some of the easy storylines following this team. And I realize we follow the team every day and we know all the storylines and we feel like everybody should know those. But there's some big ones. You know what I mean? Like, I want to say that they messed up on Charles Jagasaw and how he was the original starting left tackle. Like, they didn't have any idea that was the case. It was just this guy off the bench and he's out here doing work, and just butchering names, and it's ugly.
Fill in the blank. Coastal Carolina has announced all concessions will be free at home football games. this season. Fans can get 4 items on each trip to the concession stand with no limit on the number of visits that you can make each game. And this is blank.
Great for fans, a real boneheaded move by administration because they are going to lose so much money.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, are you going to jack up ticket prices? Like, you're going to raise prices like $20-$30 a pop? Like,
I mean, that is like,
or do they hope to sell more tickets by doing this?
maybe
You've got to offset it someplace, because that's like, one, you've got to pay the concession stand people. So you're going to be paying concession stand people for giving away food and drinks, basically.
And
like
4 items per round.
you can just keep going back. Yeah, you can like get your 4 things, go hand it off to your kids, and then jump right back in line and get 4 more.
Which I would do if I was going to
I know you would.
games. Like,
Yeah.
I would take my whole family. Like, okay, we're going to get dinner at the football game. Let's go. Wild. That's just wild. I thought that there was going to be some sort of a limit. Like, you get 1 trip to the concession stand, like they give you a token and you get whatever. And
Right.
That's it. Okay, fine. But unlimited trips?
Unlimited. That
Can
is
you imagine
crazy.
being a college student
Oh, I know.
getting your, because like, Notre Dame Notre Dame students get a severely discounted ticket to go to Notre Dame games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you imagine getting your severely discounted student ticket to go to games and you're just loading up on the food and drink?
I know.
Man? Just
I know.
unbelievable to me.
John says he'd spend the entire game at the concession stand. I think a lot of people would. Like,
I mean, oh my God.
pay for your ticket and just, it's like, hey, go eat for free the rest of the day. It's like going
And
to the buffet.
Do they sell alcohol? Because
That's what I was wondering. Like if you're giving, you can't, surely they're not giving away beer. Like,
I can't imagine.
they can't be. Because one, I don't even think you're allowed to do
As
that.
I say, I don't think that's legal.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, and that's like beer and soda, well, and water for that. Basically anything that you drink is the biggest markup in the whole thing,
Yes.
if it comes out of a fountain. So
Yes, absolutely correct.
yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be. I'm very curious to see where that go. We need to keep tabs on this particular story and see where this goes, because if beer is included, you're going to have some really drunk people and you're going to have some disorderly conduct situations at games. And that's going to be a problem.
Ryan says lines will be insane. I agree with that. Joe says there's no way to offset. They'll be spending more money to have food delivered. And that's the thing. Like, even I have no idea what their attendance was, but let's say it was like 30,000 a game and you up it to 50,000 per game. Like, every game, like 7 games basically, or 6 games, however many you get at that, because like you're probably going to have to go, like on the road and get a couple, payday games and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Since you're Coastal Carolina, so you're not going to have as many home games as Notre Dame, for example. But even at 6 games, you up it like that. I just like you're just giving away all that food. And like I said, you're paying the concession stand workers. You got to pay to have the food delivered. You got to pay to have it, prepared and all that stuff. I don't see how they're going to make any profit out of this, but everybody's talking about them, I guess.
Yeah, they're definitely talking about it. So the average attendance at Coastal Carolina football games, by the way, was 21,415.
Okay.
last season.
So there's your answer why they're trying to do it, to
Yes.
try to
Yep.
probably get closer to 40,000 if they can.
And I wonder what the capacity is of the.
Brian is saying 21,000 capacity. So
Oh, really?
if that's the capacity, then you're not
It
even
is.
like,
21,000.
so they're already filling it up and they're
Oh.
going to give away free food.
Wow. Okay. Then what's
don't
the
get what-
incentive? I don't know.
I don't get what they're doing. I don't get the
Sense.
business model here. I don't
need
think
to
you
get
have to be a math major to figure this out.
John Stires, you need to get somebody from the Coastal Carolina ticket, whatever. Whoever's making these decisions, we need them on the show. I need to
think
know
you're
where
right.
this is coming from,
I
because
think
they're
you're right.
selling out games. What's happening? What's going on? We need to take the RV down there for a game.
I think you're right. Hang out by the beach out there in Myrtle Beach.
Let's go.
Do it up.
and get as much food as we want, apparently. Like,
Yeah.
what's the benefit of sitting in the press box?
I was going to say, you could go as a fan to a Coastal Carolina game and get more free food than you're getting in the press box.
Probably true, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably don't run out of ice before the game either. So some sad news today, Vince.
Oh, this was sad.
I know. Val Kilmer has died after a long battle with cancer. My question to you, what is Val Kilmer's most iconic movie role?
Well, there's two answers to this.
I think we're probably going to have the same answer then.
Yeah. There, in my opinion, there's two answers to this, but for me, it's Iceman. It's
got to be Iceman, right?
It just is. I know his Doc Holliday is also very iconic.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah, I'm your Huckleberry. That's probably his most famous quote, as an actor. And he did an amazing job. But for me,
in Veritas Vetus.
I mean, and I've seen Tombstone like once or twice. You know what
Really?
I mean? Yeah. I've seen
At least you've seen it. At least you've seen it. Okay, so
I have seen it. And he
can't
did
ding you on that.
job in it. But it's Top Gun, man. Like, it's Iceman. He will always be Iceman to me. Always. Always.
It's DK says Real Genius. I barely remembered he was in Real Genius, but like it's got to be Iceman, like with the whole, the teeth and the, when he's, in the locker room and he's like,
yeah,
Maverick. We all loved Goose. Yeah, but like that was like when I think of Val Kilmer, that is absolutely the first one that I think of, and then the second one is Doc Holliday, pale face and the sweat, and I'm your Huckleberry, and everything else. Like those and everything else to me have got to be it. And I didn't realize until after the movie came out, like the whole, like the throat cancer, somebody I think posted in the chat that Val Kilmer's not going to be able to be in the third Top Gun. And I mean, I think that's why they wrote the story the way they did, where he died.
Right.
Because obviously, like
they knew he wasn't going to make it to the next one.
And that's, and Cruise wanted him to be in Top Gun Maverick, and they obviously had to find a way to do that because of the fact that he had the throat. Right. That's what I was going to say. That's what I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Like before the production and and everything came out, and you kind of started reading and hearing some interviews, was they obviously wrote that in, as part of the storyline, because he actually couldn't talk, and they had to go back and, like use some AI type stuff, just to get it, like the sounds that they had coming out of him, in that movie. So, yeah. What do you think about the, sort of the villain turned baby face kind of spin that they gave to Ice from Top Gun to Top Gun Maverick, that they were buddies and best friends and all that stuff, by the second one? Did you like that? The way that they went with that?
What I did like about it was, so they had to explain why Maverick was still in the military and why he never rose up through the ranks. So they had to explain that somehow, right? And so
he had to have that kind of guardian angel.
And it makes sense that Iceman advanced and was an admiral, and he basically kept tabs on, Maverick, and allowed him to continue to be Maverick, and, all of those things. So it made sense, but the entire Top Gun movie was them just clashing with each other.
Right.
Yeah, of course, you could be friends after that. That's a thing, I suppose. But yeah,
he does save him at the end, so maybe that's what turns. And they,
right. Well, they hug, and you could be my wingman anytime.
Well, yeah, but Maverick, he hung. First he was going to bail, and then he had to talk himself into it, and then he stayed, and of course, he shot down the other MiG and all that kind of stuff, and saved Ice. So maybe that kind of changed Ice's view of Maverick, and they became, a lot closer friends over time.
So, I mean, it makes sense, obviously. And then, yeah, they were friends for the next 40 years.
Oh, DK's always got Nice little. Decaf says, spoiler alert, he died. I'm telling you what, man, it's been almost 3 years since Maverick came out. If you think I'm going to like sit on spoilers now, I'm sorry. I can't do anything for you. Like 3 years is well past my limit.
Well, and to tell you the truth, Iceman dying doesn't really change the ending of the movie in any way. So,
no impact on the actual like storyline.
None.
It's just he was in literally one scene, and then a couple scenes later, you find out that he died.
Right, and there was a couple times where he texted Maverick. You know what I mean? You saw like a text chain.
Right.
But that was about it.
Pretty snappy texters as well for guys who were in their late 50s and early 60s. I thought like they were really quick with the thumbs for old guys.
who looks better for their age, Tom Cruise or Ralph Macchio?
Oh man, it might have to be Macchio.
I know,
because like when Cruise isn't like when he doesn't have the army of people, you know, like going full Cruise effect on his face and his hair and everything else, like he's starting to show just, you know, like he still looks better, you know, than any of us who are, you know, anywhere close to his age, but he's starting to show, you know, a little age in his face. I think Macchio could still pass for a guy in his 40s though.
I mean, and Macchio's a year older than Tom Cruise.
Exactly. They're like both early 60s now, right?
Macchio's 63 and Cruise is
mid 60s.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you were you a Cobra Kai fan? Did you watch any of that?
I watched the first few seasons. Like I stopped, you know, I think we watched at least the first 3 seasons, and then it felt like they were really doing some, you know, gymnastics to kind of make the storylines, you know, kind of continue to work. And so we kind of tapered off a little bit. But I watched it for
the last season is fantastic, by the
way. Until the second guy, like the second bad guy, or, you know, came back, you know, like whoever that was from the original dojo or whatever. What's his name?
Well, wait, are you talking about the
not Johnny, but like the guy that was Johnny's?
Oh, Kreese, John Kreese.
Kreese. No, not Kreese. Kreese was the guy who ran the original dojo, right?
Yes.
Who was the rich guy who came back, and it was like, you keep saying his name while I'm talking. I can't hear you.
Silver.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're like, I can see your lips move.
Okay. Yeah, it's Silver. The last season, because I agree with you, it kind of took a little bit of a dip, but I was already invested, so I was watching all of them. The last season is excelente. I would suggest that you watch the last season.
Okay.
And the way it wrapped up was,
did they call it the last season? So like it was the officially the last season kind of thing?
It's definitely done. Yes.
Would I miss any of the storyline like in the seasons that I missed?
I think you probably could figure it out. You're
okay.
A pretty smart guy. I don't think it would be much of an issue for you.
There was some back and forth and conflict and like the
right.
you know like
couple people dated some drama people and you know like that kind of a thing. Yeah, it's fine. I would say they probably have, because it's on Netflix. Obviously, they probably have like a season like recap. You know, at the beginning of each of the next season. Probably would be fine doing that.
Gotcha. All right. Well, rest in peace, Val Kilmer.
Yeah, man.
That's where all this started.
Saw that. Yep. That's how I started my day today, was learning about Val Kilmer. That was,
yep. I think that's the first thing I found out when I got up today, too.
That was sad.
When I opened up the phone. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate the questions in the mailbag. We've got plenty more coming up over the next couple of days. We had some assistant coach media opportunities today. So we'll have some of that we'll play for you and talk about over the next couple of days. And I believe we have something. Do we have something on Friday, or is it just Saturday practice? I'm trying to remember what all this looks like.
That's a great question.
I think. Let me see if we've got time here. Does it matter right now? Here we go. So what is today?
Today is the 2nd.
We do. We have some coaches and players Friday morning. Then we're supposed to get to watch the practice on Saturday, and then we'll have Marcus Freeman after the practice.
One of these days, the specialists are coming out. What day is that?
That would be Friday, because Marty Biaggi.
There you go.
Because we have zero media next week. There's
Yeah.
no media availabilities next week. It's Saturday. There's a practice this Saturday, and then the Blue Gold game is a week from Saturday, and nothing in between. So,
All right.
there you go. Spring is winding down, man. It is winding down. Appreciate you, one and all. Hit the like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.